Hello, my name is Samantha Robinson, and I would like to introduce myself to the class. Today, I will introduce myself by introducing some objects that I have in a treasure box that I created. Inside my treasure box are some items that, when I look at those items, it reminds me about some aspects of my life that help shape who I am. And on the outside of my box are some words that, over the years, when others have um, expressed how they see me, these are some words that have come up. First of all, I would like to share a picture of my family from our family reunion last year. Family has always been very important to me. I grew up in Houma, Louisiana. I'm a part of a pretty large family. Both of my grandparents had 16 children. And as a family, we were always very close. We spent most of our time together with each other. We rarely had friends outside of our family unit because to us, we had enough of our own family, our own cousins that to play with and to hang out with that we didn't really need to go outside our family circle to find friends. So our family were our friends, and we're still a lot like that today. A lot of times when we gather together, we rarely have people outside of our family unit unless they've been married into the family. But usually it's still just the siblings and the cousins and the aunts and the uncles, but pretty much just family. And so, but being part of a large family has been a lot of times of the norm or the culture of some black families, especially families who had a lot of children. Usually there's an individual, usually the older siblings are used to taking care of the younger siblings. And I am the oldest child from my parents. And just as my mother was the oldest child, she took the responsibility, she had the responsibility of caring for her siblings. And even though her siblings are in their 50s and 60s, my mother still feels a responsibility to her siblings. And so that same attribute, that same ideology was passed down to me. And so even without me thinking about it, because I was the oldest child, I was always told that I was the one in charge. And even today, my brothers who are in their 40s and 50s will say to me, still look at me as being the oldest, because my dad for years would say, don't forget Sam's in charge, Sam's in charge. And so I've always had the responsibility of looking after my siblings. And for a long time, I never recognized how being so enmeshed with a family could put a huge responsibility, but it really on an individual, and it really shaped who I am. So sometimes when I look on the outside of my box, I see words that or attributes that others have used to describe me. Words like bossy, and outspoken, but I don't really see myself as being bossy. But because I've been the person who's been in charge of my siblings for so long and a lot of other aspects of my family, I guess I do tend to be, if I guess bossy is the only word they can use. I guess that can come across to others as being bossy. But when that's been your role for so long, it's hard to get away from that. So sometimes I've been called bossy or outspoken. So when you have, I have five siblings. Excuse me, I have four siblings. There were five of us, um, and so I'm used to saying what needs to be said, and we have to move on. And so I didn't spend a whole lot of time, and that's the way my parents raised us. That when they weren't there, I was the authority figure as though my parents was there. And so I guess I do, to some of us, we come off as being bossy and outspoken. Um, on June 22nd, I will have been married 30 years to my high school sweetheart. And so in my treasure box, I have my wedding ring from when we got married 30 years ago. So the ring is so small you can tell I can't fit that ring anymore. I have changed. But this ring represents, to me, almost a lifetime of being with my husband. I know 30 years is not a lifetime, but I feel like that. But in doing so, we have three children, three adult children. All have left home. So we are empty nesters. We have two grandchildren. But my husband also came from a pretty big family. His parents had nine children. And so he understood the dynamics of a family. But at some point, we had to realize that they didn't always work out well for our children, that you have to be able to branch out into the community and into the world to be able to have other relationships. And so as after we got married, we had to make a conscious effort to start getting our children involved in other community activities so they would not be as enmeshed as our families were. But that was not an unusual culture, for black families to have very large families and the older child being responsible for the other children. Also, when I look in my treasure box, I see a flashlight. And this flashlight to me represents the fact that I think I'm always trying to find myself. When I think I know who I am, there's seemed to be a yearning that there's something more to be learned. And so for 26 years, I have worked as an LPN. And at about two and a half years ago, I felt like I needed to be doing something different. And I'm like, okay, what is it I need to be doing? I think I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing, but I wasn't as content as I used to be doing. And so that's when I changed my major to social work. I felt like that was my next phase in life. That's my next step in life. Uh, Also, when I think about myself, I think of myself not as a flashy woman or someone who spends a lot of time doing hair and makeup. But one thing that I find about myself is that I love a pair of high heel shoes. And so when I put on a pair of high heel shoes, I feel like a woman. That makes me feel that sets to me who I am as a woman. That sets the stage for my gender, for my personhood as a woman. That a pair of high heel shoes, and so I just love high heel shoes. And also when I look at my box of some of the other attributes that others have used to describe me is being serious. And I guess I am serious. I guess I'm very businesslike, and I think they came from my background of having to be the authority figure in the household when my parents wasn't home with my brothers. And so I guess I do tend to be a little serious, and so sometimes it's hard for me to relax. Also, another word that others have used to describe me is standoffish. I really don't think I'm standoffish at all, but one of the things people don't understand is when you've come from a very large family, there are times you just don't want to be involved with a whole lot of people. You just need to be by yourself. And so when I'm not working or a part of a group activity that like my church ministry group, I'd rather be at home. And that's not being standoffish. I don't have a whole lot of social friends and do a lot of social interaction. And so they may come across as standoffish to others when it really is just me trying to have some time for myself. And all that, to me, one of the biggest things that really shape who I am is my relationship with God. That is, I grew up in the church. I've always been in the church. But in my early 20s, it seemed like that was a turning point for me when I really began to see God for who He is and how important He was to me as on a personal level. And so the Word of God, church, is so very important to me. It's very instrumental in how I see myself, how I interact, and how I act. Hopefully, I don't always do it right, no, but I think it really shapes who I am. In 2006, I became a licensed minister. I work in my church with our Christian education. I am the minister of Christian education. I work in our community ministry group. And so I think my family's background and my ministry really plays a huge part in who I am. And so I hope in just sharing some aspects out of my treasure box and giving you a glimpse into who I am. I'm looking forward to meeting each of you and making this a wonderful summer session. You have a great evening.